Welcome, and thank you for attending our panel entitled Higher Education Mentoring, Participants' Views of Two Separate Mentoring Programs. Just a reminder, we do have a companion presentation that we recommend you view prior to viewing this particular panel. It's entitled Higher Education Mentoring, Summary and Framework of Two Separate Mentoring Programs. And what it really does is it takes a deep philosophical and logistical dive into the two programs that we're going to be discussing today. However, what I'd really like to get to today is introducing the panel. So if everyone would please just introduce themselves, who they are, their institution, a little bit about their experience with mentoring, then we'll move directly into the mentor-mentee question and answer period.
Hello, I'm Damon Andrew. I'm Dean of the College of Education at Florida State University. This is my 13th year serving in the role as Dean. I'd previously served as Dean at LSU and at Troy University in Alabama, and certainly been the beneficiary of some great mentoring along the way, going back to my times as a faculty member at University of Louisville and University of Tennessee, and also during my time as a doctoral student here at FSU. And I'm participating in the NACKE Leader Mentor Program with Dr. Daniel Burke, who will be introduced to later.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Bobby Berry and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Sport Management at Wichita State University. Been in this particular role as a faculty member at Wichita State for about 4 to 5 years, and then joined sport management about 2 years ago. For me specifically, being a part of our HELM program at Wichita State, which is our higher education leadership and mentoring program that was developed about a year ago, and being able to have the capacity and the ability to have a perspective and a viewpoint on what leadership looks like in higher education. So serving as a role as a mentee in this particular role, and being able to have an amazing mentor who works at our institution, specifically in student affairs as a dean of students, to kind of guide me along my journey. So that's been my experience thus far, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later.
Hello, I'm Daniel Burr, and I'm at Texas A&M University Kingsville. I'm associate professor here. I have been the sport management program coordinator. I'm currently serving the role of associate chair, as well as our graduate coordinator. I've had a number of great mentors over the years that have helped out every time and place I've kind of really needed one. Currently looking at going into administration and focusing on the leadership qualities. I am currently with the NACKE Leadership Mentorship Program, and was blessed that Dr. Damon Andrew was willing to say yes and work with me through the mentorship process.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Calder. I'm the Director of Esports here at Wichita State, and I am a mentee in the HELM program. I am relatively new to a mentorship program such as this, and being new to higher education as well. When the opportunity presented itself, I just couldn't help myself. Learning about leadership in higher education and on my journey, it was just so important. So it's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm really excited to continue it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Clay Stolt. I'm the interim dean in the College of Applied Studies at Wichita State, and also a professor in sport management. I've been the beneficiary throughout my academic career of getting a chance to work with a number of tremendous mentors. The vast majority of that, I will say, has been informal mentoring. So really, as I came up through the years, relatively little involvement in formal mentoring programs, but still received some tremendous benefit from others investing in me. And currently, I am participating in the HELM program at WSU as a mentor.
And my name is Mark Vermillion. I'm the chair for the Department of Sport Management here at Wichita State. I'm also currently serving as the interim associate dean, and then also the director for the Workforce Leadership and Applied Learning degree program. Mentoring is something that's really important to our department, both formally and informally. In regards to my personal experience, I actually didn't have a lot of mentoring experience until I got to Wichita State. And then, as we started doing kind of research on best practices, I sort of needed to learn, what are some of the things that we need to do to develop a mentoring program. So I kind of approached it from diving directly into a mentor role, having never been a mentee, which is kind of an interesting experience. But nobody wants to hear me talk about all that. What people really tuned into this particular panel for is to hear these individuals, to hear about their experiences, whether it's with the Leadership Mentor Program with NACI, or if it's the Higher Education Leadership and Mentoring Program, the HELM program at Wichita State University, or maybe they have experiences and ideas that they want to bring to this discussion from other mentor or mentee programs that they've been involved. And so I just want to open up the conversation for this particular panel with a question to both mentors and mentees. Why was being involved in a mentoring program important to you? And then where, kind of as a secondary question, where do you see the value in participating in a mentoring program? And I just open that up to the group.
Mark, I think professionally, one of the reasons why I was very interested in getting involved is that I'm very concerned that faculty members with sport management backgrounds are not really progressing into mid and senior level administrative positions in academia, certainly at the rate that our academic programs are expanding. You go back to even though our discipline kind of dates back into the mid 20th century, you still only had a handful of programs in the early 1990s. And now we've seen huge growth, hundreds of percentages of growth in that program, but we've not seen a concurrent growth in faculty with sport management backgrounds moving into mid and senior level positions in higher education. You know, and as the old saying goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And faculty with sport management backgrounds have not been at the academic table very often or for very long. And I think it's a true shame. There's really a lot of similarities between the higher education industry and the sport industry. Both feature simultaneous nature of production and consumption. They're being produced and consumed at the same time. They both have distinct perishability elements, meaning that if you don't register by the time drop ad ends, you've lost the opportunity to be able to partake in the education experience that semester. Same way, if you didn't have tickets for the Lakers-Warriors basketball game last night, you didn't have access to it, that game is gone. It's perishable. It's also an unknown outcome. You go into higher education not necessarily knowing how it's going to impact you and in what ways. You may have some indicators, but you don't know for sure, just like you didn't know who was going to win the basketball game last night until it was over. And you really have, you're unable to truly judge the quality of what you're buying prior to purchase. You may have the US News and World Report rankings that give you an indicator of what you might experience, or you may have the current standings and conference standings for a sport team that you're looking at to give you an idea, but there's really unpredictable outcomes that are associated with it. So you see these incredible similarities between sport industry and higher education industry. It's really almost experience management, yet we're not seeing a translation of a large number of sport management faculty who I think would have a competitive advantage moving into mid and senior level administration of higher education. It's not happening at the rate that it should be happening. So I'm committed to doing my part and supporting those who might serve as the next generation of leaders in the academy.
I think for me, being an individual who did not necessarily plan to pursue higher education, my background is in that of exercise science, and that's where my degrees are in. And now, as I've gone through the process of my doctoral program in educational leadership and just kind of seeing the abilities that I have and the growth potential that I have and the things that I've been able to accomplish. And so for me, being able to have a mentor that had walked a similar path that I aspire to walk in, and that is being a dean of students someday at college level. And so this program was the perfect opportunity for me to be able to speak to someone like-minded who has navigated the waters of higher education. And so for me, that was necessary, and it has really impacted me both personally and professionally. When I think about personally and thinking about being able to understand my abilities and how to utilize not only my strengths, but how to turn maybe some of my weaknesses into strengths as well. This has also been able to help me to understand how my identity lives within higher education. And then not only that, but from a professional standpoint, some of the soft skills that I've been able to truly develop within this arena, if you will, and that's the time management, the problem solving, being able to think critically. Those are some of the things that you don't necessarily know to expect when you walk into certain positions, especially that within higher education. So that was really the main thing for me, and those are some of the things that I've walked away with thus far.
I think probably for me, one of the interesting things to point out for most people from a mentoree standpoint anyway is if you think you're not being mentored, you're wrong. The question is, are you getting a formal mentorship from somebody, or are you doing what's incidental learning? Are you learning by just watching everything around you? And that's a risk, because when you're in a situation where what you're considering is important, what you're trying to engage in and do is important, just watching what's happening around you tells you a lot of what is happening. But without that formal mentorship or someone there to talk to you or guide you, you don't really have the why something is happening. So if I'm in a situation where I watch an administrator come down on somebody, and I could take that a bunch of different ways. I could try to mimic it. I could be like, well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be completely opposite. But I don't know why that specific situation happened. And so therefore now I'm copying, mimicking, or revolting against specific behaviors. And that's dangerous, because again, you don't have any of the context that goes with it. So for me, the value is not just to see what's going on and learn from it, but also to have the why behind the scenes. And echoing what Dr. Berry said, and a little bit what Dr. Andrew said, is really that ability to learn what's between the lines and the situations you're in, to be able to read what you need to be able to do or how you need to position yourself is extremely important. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, luck doesn't necessarily exist. It's more of opportunities happen, and either you are prepared or not prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. With a formal mentor who can talk to you about those things and hope and have an open and honest dialogue with you, you can really kind of get ready for that positioning to take place, to take advantage of those opportunities.
I think for myself, the best part about this program has been, it kind of goes into what Bobby was saying, as far as not really necessarily wanting to or knowing that you were going to go into higher education. It kind of just, the opportunity presented itself and then you move forward with it. And I have been just in love with it since being here. And I never expected to work in esports. That was something that was just kind of way outside the box, way outside of anything I was ever going to imagine or envision myself doing. But the opportunity to work with students and to kind of build this program and really see them grow through it has been an amazing opportunity. But more so was working with my mentor. As soon as I heard who I was working with and their experience with creating a program and moving forward with that and watching and impacting other people and other students was extremely encouraging, but then also getting to benefit from the failures as well. And I think I love, it's going to sound kind of crazy, but I love failing because we get to learn from those experiences and we get to really kind of push forward. It builds resiliency, and my mentorship experience with Dr. Ingbar has been incredible because of that. And I can't say that anymore. And so that value that I really will say I didn't expect, I really didn't expect to be like, oh, this is going to be great. I've had a lot of informal mentorships, but this has been incredible. And I've enjoyed every bit of it. And definitely has been an incredible experience.
One other layer I'll add to this from the perspective of a mentor is I think a lot of times when we talk about mentoring programs, mentor-mentee relationships, a lot of times I think the assumption is that almost all of the value add from the experience is going to the mentee side. And I think from the perspective of a lot of us who serve as mentors, there is that sense of commitment to others and wanting to invest in other people in like manner to ways that we've benefited from others investing in us. But even in the mentor-mentee relationship, that is a tremendous growth opportunity for the mentor as well. So I think that's a relevant consideration. Even though it may not be primary, it certainly is important.
I would agree. Anytime you get a chance to learn from others, anytime you get a chance to take advantage of opportunities as they kind of come your way, these are important things, and these are some, obviously some great outcomes for having mentoring programs. But I wanted to speak with the mentees here just for a second. So here's a question to you all in regards to barriers. So what personal, maybe some professional barriers have you faced that could impact your mentoring relationships?
I think, when I think about that, three things instantly came to mind. And one is just time. We're so busy just in general. And I think with the roles that I have within the college and then the role that my mentor has at our institution, finding that time to truly connect could be a barrier. We've had the opportunity and the ability to make it work, but it's some of the things that we have to work diligently at. Or one of the things that we have to work diligently at. And I think the second thing would be that of COVID. I think everyone has been in this remote state. And I think we're all virtually exhausted and fatigued, if you will. And then just all of the internal and external impacts of COVID. So, the additional meetings and the prepping and the planning and the, trying to figure out how to properly connect with our students, and just the level of intensity, if you will, at all of our institutions. And that has been one. And then I think my last thing, which is a little bit more personally, is just that the level of representation. So, there is not a ton of Black faculty members at my institution specifically. And I think obviously, nationally speaking, for that, of, finding and being able to connect with someone who understands the weight of the lack of representation within higher education. And so Mark was amazing to be able to ask me, if you had to, have an input on who your mentor is, who would that be? And thankfully, and coincidentally, our dean of students is a man of color. And so it was a very nice pairing to be able to identify with someone who's watched and had some similar experiences that I have.
For myself, I'll absolutely agree with COVID has been interesting, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was such a negative impact for us, just because everything that we do is online in esports. So it's something that I'm very familiar with. Literally, we're one of the only sports on campus that is currently working at full speed. We're still playing. So I'm able to kind of move along with that, but I haven't had that one-on-one experience with my mentor where we've been able to go have a coffee and really get more personal. It's always just been through the computer screen. Additionally, from a personal standpoint, and I would say my insecurities, and that's my insecurities of not having the experience in higher education, wanting to be currently where I'm going to be in 5 to 7 years, and having that conversation with my mentor in an open and honest way and saying, hey, and that kind of goes back to what I said before with failure. It's okay to fail, because I know that's not where I am today. It's where I'm going to be. And so I get to learn from those experiences. But it has been something that has been, I would say, more of a personal barrier than anything.
I think if I was getting into higher ed right now, a decade in, it looks a lot different looking back than at the beginning. But I think it's really well echoed talking about the fact that you have a lot going on. You're just now showing up. You're trying to get everything from classes organized to what you're actually in charge of, what you're not in charge of, what your plans are. You every 5 seconds being asked what your research agenda is going to be and what else you need for that. And trying to figure out how do I talk about all those things with someone who's a mentor right off the bat without overloading them has to be, it's extremely hard. And I've had good mentors and I've also had bad mentors. And that's the other fear is, usually when you're coming into a new situation, you don't necessarily know who would be a bad mentor either. What you think is successful for someone, maybe they're great at research and grant writing, things like that, but that may not really assist you. They may not have the skill set or tool set to assist you. And so I'm gonna speak a little bit from the leadership standpoint that, if you're a chair, dean, whatnot, be really in tune with how those relationships develop, because, the last thing you want is someone who's really good at one part of their evaluation fully taking over and helping someone who may not be at that point in their career that they can be that focused on one thing. And so, fast forward that to now the time is still a problem for those who, after a decade, your time doesn't get any improved. I think everyone would echo that just that time never improves, but the situations are harder, and especially from the leadership standpoint, things like finding time to develop towards the mentorship and discussions are a lot harder. I think that's something that Dr. Andrew and I have talked about a couple of times, especially as it relates back to finding time for self-care and things like that. But yeah, insecurity plays I think a major role for anyone who really desperately, the people who need that mentorship, essentially, insecurity plays a massive role. I'm not gonna lie, I was reading Dr. Andrew's books and writing on some of his papers long back when I was doing, when I was doing my doctoral work, long before we're at the point now. And so, to get to this point is awesome. It's an excellent experience. But man, if you asked me 10 years ago, I'd be like, no, that's never going to happen. That's just not a possibility, So, those unique things, again, preparing and taking advantage of those opportunities, I think plays a key role. But again, we are all dealing with those insecurities and also making sure you get a good mentor.
Wonderful points again. When we start thinking about, the intentional engagements within kind of a mentoring ecosystem, oftentimes if you focus on not just the outcomes of the deliverables, but the process of that type of relationship building, it's going to be a focus on the individual. And many of you spoke about those different things, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, and kind of an amalgamation of both. But I kind of want to use that and dive into another question that's for both mentors and mentees. And it really deals with one of the themes of this year's COSMAS conference. How do issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity impact mentoring relationships? And additionally, and this one's pretty long here, so I can repeat it, but additionally, how can organized mentoring programs not only be attuned to issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity, but also be proactive in creating or elevating opportunities and content for promoting these issues and values?
It's a big question, Mark. I would start by just saying that in today's environment, I don't think anybody can be a successful leader without a deep understanding of diversity, inclusion, and equity. The work is not just the work of a few of your colleagues who study this area, perhaps in your college or some other area of the university. It must be the collective work of all of us, and we all must be committed to continuing education and development in this area. I think any comprehensive mentoring program in higher education would be incomplete without the incorporation of diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. So if a standardized curriculum is used in a mentoring process, then it should be definitely included. If a non-standard curriculum is used, then either the mentor or the mentee need to ensure that the content is included in the program.
One of the things as I think about the structure of the HELM program is that three-prong approach to it, which includes both the mentoring relationship, but also the related professional development and then the applied activities. And so I think that's one way that mentoring programs can be structured to ensure that attention is given to this very important topic of diversity and inclusion, and perhaps that shared professional development experiences that both the mentors and the mentees engage in together can serve as the platform for additional conversations in the one-to-one setting.
I think what I would add to that is understanding that when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they don't necessarily all go together. And I think a lot of people feel you have a diverse environment, then it's automatically inclusive. If you have an inclusive environment, it's automatically diverse. And I think looking at those two as them being separate, because I think a lot of the times when you go in and thinking that it's all one thing, the approach is really maybe not as impactful as it could be. And so I think really in order to enhance, improve, and hopefully elevate diversity, it has to be something that is consistently discussed, consistently talked about, and consistently worked upon. And I think being able to have those conversations openly and honestly about what does that look like in our industry specifically, I think that's really the best way to really ultimately make some type of impact. And I think being able to create environments where we're able to have those discussions openly and honestly is really necessary. Not only that, but in order to improve it, I think individuals need to be able to be allies and to advocate on behalf of people who maybe do not look like them or who do not walk similar paths as they do. Because ultimately, in order to improve diversity within all of our areas, I think that is something that we're going to have to do is really step up, take charge, and hopefully open those doors for others.
It's interesting. knowing we're discussing this, I actually talked to a few colleagues. And the reason why is because I really do feel like this is, as Dr. Barry brought up, I really do feel like this has to be addressed in a mentorship setting. You know, to be frank, I am a approaching / there middle-aged white male, right? So I'm in denial about that. But with that being said, you know, the reality has to be there's things I cannot address. I mean, I can talk about them, but I can't relate an experience to them. And so I think in a mentorship program that takes place, I do mentoring at the department level for some of our new faculty come in a lot of times, kind of guiding them through the process. You know, if we're in a situation where someone comes in that falls into being different from me and that aspect of it, then that's a conversation I think does need to happen, because it's more like, what are your needs and how can I better address them, or how can we better look at those needs and how they can be met? Because sometimes it can't relate. Here's topics I can't relate to. Discrimination, I can't relate to that in this situation. Stereotyping, I also can't relate to that. Social isolation, I can't relate to that. Increased social expectations on especially if you're female, on your work marriage relationship issues. A lot of my colleagues talk about that. I can't relate to that. And then again, issues that face especially women in leadership positions. You know, I see that time and time again. I have colleagues complain about how they're treated as soon as they take over a leadership position being female. You know, and so whether we're talking about ethnicity, whether we're talking about gender or other issues in place, those are all things I can't really relate to as a personal experience, right? Because anytime I turn on the TV and we're gonna have a college professor on the TV, he typically is about 20 years older than me, might still be bearded, it's probably gray, he might have elbow patches on, but he's inherently a white male. And so, you know, the reality is we built the stereotype extremely solid in our mind what that is. And so that, I think, is one of those things that is complicated that has to be addressed. I'm blessed now that 10 years into the field, I have a ton of contacts that if I have someone come in who happens to be a minority of some form that is different from me, after a conversation, I can easily put them in contact with someone who's done it just like they've gone through. And that might be help. So yes, I can advise you on how to handle the department, how to handle certain other issues. But if you're coming in and say, hey, I feel socially isolated in this kind of situation, I can talk to you about it, absolutely. But if you want someone who's been through it, I'm at the point now, at least in my career, I can reach out to those people and they're amazing and they'll go ahead and make contact. Those friends I've made and colleagues I've made over time. And so I think what can happen going forward is not only that we deal with it at the department level or at the college level as we build those relationships inside, but as we spend time building those relationships outside, we can build, and I think sport management, sport business all are slowly getting smaller in terms of we know everybody already, right? You know who people are, what to expect from them. And we can bridge those gaps a lot faster by including those individuals at different locations. So.
You know, I absolutely love everything everyone's saying. And I hate to bring up my esports program, but one thing that we do is we work towards not creating professional athletes, but creating professional humans. And we do so by bringing more of a holistic approach to our student athletes and everybody that's involved within our program. And so we talk about what can we do going forward. We have those conversations. We have diversity and inclusion training. We have, you know, we talk about mental health and stigma. We talk about, you know, just being open and honest with each other, peer-to-peer conversations. And then we go ahead and we help them. What are they going to do when they leave here? How are we going to get to the next point? And that's what we want to do. We want to create a generation of leaders that are going to change and move forward. Representation is absolutely important. And really seeing that group of individuals come together and work towards a problem and fixing that problem and moving forward with that. So I think it's just having those conversations and then implementing something and doing something, because we can sit here and talk about how we need to have, you know, we need to have more equity, we need to be more diverse and things like that. But if we don't actually take that step to create that change, then all we're doing is having a conversation, which is important and there's value in that. But I think actually making that change and implementing whatever programs or opportunities for our students to really get out there and be impactful, that's what I think matters. And that's how we move forward within this.
Thank you. Anytime we were able to have, like you said, Courtney, you know, it's good to have the discussion. And then one of the things I find really powerful about mentoring relationships is it's not just a conversation. Oftentimes there is that intentional engagement, which oftentimes can lead to action and trying to move things forward. As we're kind of starting to wind down in terms of some of the time that we have available for our panel, I wanted to pose this question to both mentors and mentees, sort of regardless of where you are in participating in these programs, but just kind of thinking in general as faculty and professionals in this area. How can sport management as a discipline positively impact the development of mentoring programs in other departments, colleges, universities, or organizations?
I think kind of as we noted at the beginning of this panel, sport management as a discipline already studies the impact of mentoring on organizations. So sport management faculty members, in my opinion, probably already have a competitive advantage because they know a little bit more about mentoring and the mentoring process than maybe colleagues in other disciplines. But just knowing about mentoring does not necessarily make one a good mentor. So I think experience both as a mentee and a mentor can greatly impact one's future success as a mentor. So we need to continue to encourage the development of mentorship programs so that we can have more experienced colleagues in the future serve as mentors for the next generation of scholars. I think the development of formal versus informal mentoring programs should be done with great care and thought in order to achieve the desired outcomes. I've been involved in a number of programs. In fact, actually, when I was a faculty member at the University of Tennessee, you're assigned a faculty mentor who not only mentors you, but they are the first step in going up for tenure and promotion at the university. If you wanted to go up for early tenure at University of Tennessee, you can't even start that process until your formal faculty mentor makes that recommendation to the department chair to start moving forward. So there's some power that's applied in that relationship. And my assigned faculty advisor was Dr. Denny Kelly. She's now retired, but it was a great experience for me. And I learned a lot about sport management and the history of NASM and so forth. She was there, I believe, at one of the very first NASM conferences. And it was a great experience, but there are also informal mentoring programs I've gained just as much valuable information from.
I think if we can also continue to create opportunities and places and spaces that other institutions and other sport management programs can discuss their experiences with mentoring, then we can really ultimately learn from each other and use some of those experiences to enhance the mentoring programs that we have. I think this notion of informal versus formal is very crucial and very critical. If I think about my own career, and two of my semi kind of informal mentors are on this call right now, and the impact that those relationships have had on me, not only professionally, but I think primarily, honestly, personally, and how impactful that has been. And then to be paired with someone like Dr. Austin, who is our Dean of Students, and the relationship that we have. And we had a relationship and a friendship prior to him being assigned my mentor. So I've just been really fortunate that all of these experiences with all of my mentors have really bettered me as a person and as a professional. But I think, sport management has that ability, since it's such a layered field and industry. And I think we have so many skills and so much to be able to add to the conversation. So I think if we find a way to really connect and share, kind of like we're doing now, that those programs will only get better.
One of the other things that I think sport management offers in the way of leadership in the area of mentoring is the Cosmo organization and the template and the approach that they give to our specialization in terms of how we go about structuring important initiatives with the outcomes-based assessment mechanism that we use to evaluate our programs and identify areas to improve. We can apply that same system, we can apply that same general template to the development of mentoring programs. And I know a number of us have spoken about the importance of really having that formal mentoring option when it's available. Well, I think that gives us a framework to do that, establish it in an effective manner, and most importantly, continue to improve with it over time.
I think one of the things that has to be considered when we talk about going out and expanding this out into the field and so forth is the fact that, you know, mentorship is not always a one size fits all. It's not just to be done between one mentor, one mentee, right? And by all means, it's certainly not meant to be a cloning. It's not something where you just copy the person. That's exactly who you become, right? It's impossible to do. But with that being said, it's one of those things we have to keep in mind also, it's not instantaneous. We're asking realistically for someone to engage in what basically is behavior change. And so that takes time. I mean, I could eat kale tomorrow and go for a run, but the next day I'm not going to lose 20 pounds because of it, right? It's a consistent, ongoing ordeal of basically engaging in certain lifestyle changes and certain behavior changes that, again, change who you are as a person down the road. And, you know, realistically, working with a mentor will go through ebbs and flows. It might be one person that you call less and less, but you still call later on. But mentors fitting what we need is really for a season, right? And that growth takes place sometimes right after the season or sometimes even over the course of years. And I think that's one of those things that we have to look forward to. But research we really need, besides, I think, formal curriculum that does need to be developed, just to make people aware, right? Because being aware eliminates a lot of the biasness and other issues that could take place. Things like risk benefits that take place for both the mentor and mentoree before they decide this is what they want to do. I think really the big discussion that comes in discussing things like inclusion, diversity, especially in leadership positions or sport management as a field going to leadership positions, also has to be the discussion of advocacy and gatekeeping that takes place inside mentorship. Those are key things. Mentors do have a responsibility when they take on a mentoree is this a person they're going to advocate for and create opportunities for as well? Or as time goes on and you're working with somebody, because this does happen, you sometimes end up with bad mentorees. It happens where no matter how much you're working with them, it's not working at all. And this may be the time you say, okay, they've been warned, we've tried, time has passed, now gatekeeping has to happen. And we don't like to talk about it. We really don't want to talk about bad mentorship situations, partly because as a mentor, you blame yourself that it didn't work out, even though that may not be true. But I think hiding those things really does a disservice and to not letting people have opportunities that deserve them. And to really make sure we're doing the best job at creating growth that's positive at all times.
Lastly, I'll just add, I think really getting rid of the taboo word, the silos on campus and around the industry. We have a secret in a sense, right? We've been a part of these wonderful mentoring programs and I have nothing but positive things to say about it, and results are happening and I can feel, you know, the growth from an individual perspective from where I started, you know, when this program began to where I am now, and I can't wait to be where I'm going to eventually get to from these experiences. And so if we can just be honest about that and open up and share the secret, right? Like it doesn't have to be ours. We don't have to own the mentoring, you know, process. We don't have to own the program. We get to share that because eventually that benefits everybody else, and it's an outward, we lift everybody up at that point. And so I would just say, absolutely, let's knock out those silos and really share the secret.
Wonderful. I want to take time just to thank all the panelists. There's a lot of questions and conversations that we can continue to have. And I recommend that if people have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us. We'll have representatives at the live COSMA session during the annual conference that would be more than happy to share information if not everyone's able to attend, or pass along questions, those types of things. But the panelists, I thank you for taking the time, putting up with my technological, lack of expertise at times. So I really appreciate it. This has been wonderful information and kind of in keeping with what a lot of we've said, but then also really what Courtney said at the end is how can we make this information available to everyone? That's kind of in the spirit of COSMA's brokering best practices. And then to Damon, to your point about trying to provide the opportunity for sport management or sport related faculty members to move up within this institution of higher education and really kind of take that impact and move it forward. So thank you very much. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact any of us on the panel. We'll do whatever we can to help. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference.